Fellow Guyanese, I had hoped to be addressing you under more pleasant and uplifting circumstances. As you know, the budget presented this year was for $192.5 billion. It was a budget which was carefully crafted to lift the quality of life of our people. Unfortunately, the opposition AFC and APNU used their one-seat majority to cut the budget by some $20.9 billion. These cuts appear to be motivated by a desire of the AFC and APNU to undermine the country's progress. The implications of the cuts are wide-ranging. In the first place, they would result in many ordinary working people losing their jobs. This will place new burdens on these persons, many of whom are the breadwinners of their families. In this regard, the cuts are heartless. Secondly, the cuts threaten the financing of many transformative projects which were intended to boost economic growth, create thousands of jobs, and ensure increased benefits for all Guyanese. In this way, the cuts imperil the future of our young people. They have even voted against funds coming into the country to finance projects like the flagship Amila Falls hydropower station, which is so critical for reducing the cost of electricity and which would have allowed us to reduce our dependence on imported fossil fuels and boost manufacturing, including agro-processing and industrialization. Particularly affected are our indigenous and hinterland communities. The shares of the opposition have injudiciously severed the hinterland electrification project, which would have seen 11,000 solar energy systems being provided to interior residents in 150 communities. The opposition has also vindictively butchered a project for land titling for Amerindian communities, as well as a micro and small enterprise initiative that would have provided small grants and support to small entrepreneurs. It has scalped the country's ambitious ICT program, which would have promoted increased investments and created numerous jobs for our people. In addition, the cuts have crippled the Ethnic Relations Commission and undermined our fight against narco-trafficking. Through these poisonous acts, the opposition seems determined to slow down and eventually halt the impressive growth taking place under the PPP civic government. Using the dictatorship of one, which they have in Parliament, they want to stymie further progress, obviously in the hope that if they can stop the development of our country, they would advance their political mission, which is to take power. In addition, the cuts have crippled the Ethnic Relations Commission and undermined our fight against narco-trafficking. Through these poisonous acts, the opposition seems determined to slow down and eventually halt the impressive growth taking place under the PPP civic government. Using the dictatorship of one, which they have in Parliament, they want to stymie further progress, obviously in the hope that if they can stop the development of our country, they would advance their political mission, which is to take power, even if it is at the expense of ordinary Guyanese well-being. This is most reckless and irresponsible and reflects the undemocratic nature of APNU, a creature of the PNCR, and the AFC, which is led by bitter men obsessed with achieving personal power. I do not take these statements lightly. I say this because they have done their foul deed after we had long meetings over 6 days, during which the government provided exhaustive answers to all their concerns and offered reasonable responses to their demands. In the course of these engagements, we had reached agreements with APNU, which they subsequently reneged on, fearing that the AFC would steal political support from them and bowing to pressures from extremists in and outside of their ranks. We demonstrated goodwill from the beginning in increasing old age pensions to $10,000 per month. That alone would cost the Treasury more than $1 billion. More than that, we agreed on a package of measures to assist the citizens of Linden, where we agreed to implement a phased reduction in subsidies, which would see the citizens of that mining community paying only half of the tariff which the rest of the country is paying. The adjustment in the subsidy became necessary because it is unsustainable. The price of fuel increased from $5 to $7 per barrel in 1992 to $120 per barrel today. Moreover, by gradually aligning the tariff with the rest of the country, we hope to encourage greater conservation of energy in Linden. At the moment, the per capita household consumption in Linden is almost 3 times that of households in the rest of Guyana. Yet, during the negotiations, both the AFC and APNU were inflexible on this issue. On the issue of the reduction in the value-added tax which they proposed, we told them that we believed that a study was needed before any action was taken. However, we indicated that we were willing to sit with them to agree on extending the list of zero-rated items. This, we believe, is a more targeted way to assist persons considered to be low-income earners. On the reduction of the toll fees on the Berbice River Bridge, we pointed out that the company BBCI running that entity was a private company. We pointed out that some very important public institutions have invested in the bridge, including the NIS and the New Building Society. We went over with them how the fees were arrived at. They were advised also that we were putting back a ferry to cross the river to correct the disadvantage that school children and workers in the Rosignol and West Bank Berbice may experience since the bridge became operational. Moreover, we asked them to consider the implications for the investors in our country were we to do what they demanded, to nationalize the bridge and make it a state company. We told them that that would put us in a bad position since we had agreed with the investors on a rate of return and that the bridge will become government-owned after 20 years of operation. This too, they rejected. We also agreed to the creation of a depressed community fund and proposed its funding of over $2 billion for 2012 through an allocation of 1% of VAT revenue collected in 2011. My dear countrymen, women, and youth, the PPP Civic has always been ready to consult and to meet with the opposition and all stakeholders in the interest of advancing the socio-economic interests of our people. Even before I was sworn in as president, I agreed to meet and did meet the opposition parties. We met on other occasions at short notice to discuss matters of national interest. On my instruction, the contracts of all the projects which they queried were made available publicly and to APNU and the AFC. We also laid in Parliament all the documents they requested in relation to the projects. I even invited them to a full presentation of the Amila Fall project in which all the questions were answered. We even told them that if they had any other questions or concerns, we were willing to answer them. We have been open and frank at all times with the opposition. Unfortunately, the combined opposition has conspired and ended up retarding the development taking place in the country. Their actions now threaten the many transformative projects that our government has started and delayed the commencement of others in the pipeline. By putting workers on the breadline, they have demonstrated a callous and mean-spirited attitude. The inexplicable and unfathomable cuts instituted by the opposition to our national budget constitute an ominous threat to the livelihood of Guyanese and to future generations. These reductions in our budget provisions assail not just workers' rights, but also threaten to reverse the gains which our people, through hard work and sacrifice, have earned over the years. The cuts constitute an assault on workers, their living standards, on economic growth, national unity, freedom of expression, and our democratic gains. In spite of this, my faith in dialogue remains undiminished. I still hold the view that dialogue with all Guyanese, including the political parties, is the best way for us to narrow our differences and reach consensus on the way forward. However, dialogue cannot be constructive or productive when the other side is intransigent or adopt an all-or-nothing posture. I remain optimistic. I have profound faith in the people of this country and their ability to overcome the challenges presented by the developments of the past few days. I want to assure all Guyana that the steps and decisions I take in the coming period will be guided by the national interests and commitment to the well-being of the people of this country. I am confident that we will overcome the present setback. Thank you very much for your attention.